Peace, everybody out there. Go Blue. All my A2 crew. Everybody out there who are Michigan Wolverine college football fans. The Big House Breakdown is back one more again. About to tell you when, what, why, where, and how the game went down between the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans. So I'm sitting here, lunchtime, coffee sipping, thinking about this controlled belt behind whipping that Michigan put on Michigan State. Okay, so before everybody starts plotting and starts going crazy and starts losing their crap over the performance that the Michigan Wolverines put on, yes, they should have blown out Michigan State. Yes, that should have happened. But it didn't happen. And you know why it didn't happen? Because of energy, attitudes, the time of year, the in-state rivalry that it is, the makeup, the fever of it all. There were going to be mistakes made. These kids play together all their lives. They all know each other, especially if a good percentage of both teams are recruited in state. They go to the 7-on-7 circuits together. They may be on the same 7-on-7 teams. So they're no strangers to each other and what they do and how they do and their inclination as athletes. And also, before we get started on the stats and all of the, the individual and intermediate of it all, they are all scholarship kids. So they all have talent. So you're not going to keep talent down if you are like the college football game is today, where it's spread them out, pass every other down. You're going to have infinite amounts of chances to move the ball in between the 20s. The way that college football is really responding to right now is who can keep teams out of the end zone. That's what really, really matters. But let's go to the box score so we can see what just happened. Well, you know what? Yeah. So we can see what happened in the thin of it with Michigan versus Michigan State. So it was 31-20. That was your final score. Michigan State passes for 190 yards with Aiden Childs. Frazier rushes for 115 with help. And some of that 115 is Childs. And they had it for a combined 305 total yards. Now, Michigan manages the pass for 86 yards, which is very pedestrian considering what Michigan has been putting up this year. They rushed for 276 yards with Bryce Underwood helping in that effort, right? And for a total of 362 yards on the night. So that was the way that the score broke down. Now let's talk about some individual quarterback performances. So Bryce Underwood passes 8 for 17 for 86 yards. 8 for 17. So that really shows you that the passing game wasn't clicking. That's more than double the attempts for less yards per pass play. So why people would complain that we had a conservative game plan when Bryce Underwood went 8 for 17, whether it was his fault or not, whether he was spinning great or he wasn't. You can't go 8 for 17 and think, okay, I'm just going to keep throwing incompletions all year, all night until something clicks. Or guess what? You wind up like Aiden Childs, 14 for 28 for 130 yards. So you don't do much better, but you just keep trying to force it down the field. And then I'm gonna say Milovicevic. Yeah, yeah. So Milovicevic, the backup, went 5 of 6 for 60 yards and a touchdown in garbage time effort. I don't really count that, although it's represented in the score. It probably saved him a job on the team as they revamped that entire squad next year. Um, yeah, it's going to be a fire sale in Michigan State, starting with they're going to have to revamp the quarterback position and all of it. All right, so let's talk about rushing. Rushing. Justice Haynes from Michigan rushed 26 attempts for 152 yards and two tutties with a 28-yard long gain. Jordan Marshall, sorry, ran 15 for 110 for a touchdown and a 56-yarder. And then, of course, Bryce Underwood went 5 of 26 for a 13-yard scamper around the corner. Beautifully designed play by Chip Lindsey. And on the Michigan State side, Frazier ran 14 for 109 yards, no touchdown. I remember I keep telling you, so Frazier didn't score. Tyler Tolliver didn't score. Tullis scored, which is one of their other running backs. Child scored running the ball on a quarterback, I guess, sneak or quarterback dive, right? But the team that could keep the other team out of the end zone, that's the team that wins. So, in other words, Childs didn't throw for any passing touchdowns. He ran for one rushing touchdown in the whole affair. Um, really interesting, right? All right, let's go to receiving. So nothing spectacular on the Michigan side. Andrew Marsh, 3 for 54 with a long of 27. Justice Haynes, 3 for 19 with a long of 14. Donovan McCulley, 1 for 9. With a 1 for 9 ratio, you got to keep targeting that man. I don't get it. And Marlon Klein needs to kind of have several seats and let, Zach get in there and do his thing. On the Michigan State side, we had Nick Marsh, who had 6 for 75. So that's not bad and it's not good that we let him cook like that a little bit with a long of a 24-yard scamper. Amari Kelly had 3 for 29 with a long of 15. Velling was 3 for 26. And McCray was 3 of 24. So what's interesting and telling about outside of Nick Marsh, we kept the rest of the Michigan State receivers at bay. And I think between playing Oklahoma, between playing Nebraska, now USC, and now Michigan State, I think Michigan is very comfortable seeing those kind of super threat offenses with 3 or more opposing receivers on one side. I think we know what to do with that. And I've been telling people all year that Michigan recruits that way. They're built to combat air raid teams. And if they don't do it, then that means they failed the coaching and the game plan has failed the squad. Poor game plan. So that's what USC and Oklahoma would represent. Poor game plans. All right. So defensively, Jimmy Rolder had a sack. Um, who else came to the sack party? Okay, that's it. Was that it? No. Um, TJ Guy had a sack, and I'm looking at the stats now. Derek Moore had 2 sacks, so he's quietly coming on strong, just like he always does. He always gets better as the season goes. Barham had a sack himself. No, I'm sorry. He had a tackle for a loss. 2 tackles for a loss. Rolder had a tackle for a loss. Derek Moore had a tackle for a loss. So, they're doing their thing, man. Brandon Hillman got in on the action. Metcalf had a really great open field tackle to kill a drive. Really good stuff. We're even getting action from Damon Payne and others. Okay, so that's kind of how the game went. Now, we got a touchdown early from Bryce Underwood. That kind of set it all off after a field goal from Zavada. Aiden Childs in the second quarter has a 1-yard touchdown, like a tush push touchdown. Third quarter, Justice Haynes rushed for a 5-yard touchdown. That kind of double tight end action where they both sealed off the edge. And shout out to Shout out to Hoffman. Shout out to Max Bredesen. And shout out to Blake Frazier. They did a great job, as pulling guards because we had a lot of pressure coming from the inside uh, A, B, and C gaps of Michigan State. And they always have formidable tackles for, Michigan State. So we had trouble with that. And that gave us, we made some great coaching changes to account for that. So, in other words, if this was high school, you would tell your linemen to close down their splits. And instead of pulling guards and tackles, you pull your tight ends and your fullbacks. You know what I'm saying? You have like a wing T sort of offense. Instead of pulling, everybody zone blocks, and then to the opposite side or down blocks, you pull your fullback, you pull your tight end around, and you seal off. And that's what helped Justice Haynes, get that touchdown. So then you got another touchdown from Justice Haynes at 14 yards. That was a really great one. He kind of just broke out of the pack and did that. But that was only predicated on the inside rushing, the hard inside rushing that was had in the first half. So similar to, a passing game where you want to go east to west to eventually go north to south. You want to, in a run game, you want to go north and south to eventually hit the corners, hit the edges, and get out, and get on your horse and get up out of there. And then, of course, Jordan Marshall coming in the second half of that 50-yard run. Tullis rushed for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Just 2-point conversion. That was the one where Jimmy Rolder blocked the pass. Yeah, he swatted the pass down incompletion. Hell of an incompletion. He had about maybe 3 really good incompletions, and it's a shame that Cole Sullivan, the Michigan linebacker, got hurt because the two of them were really good in pass coverage. And you could truly rush 4, drop 7 with the two of them as your middle backers, and then you could rush Ernest Hausman, Jayshon Barham, and Derek Moore and really create havoc, and Rajon Benning, and really create havoc up front. And that's where Michigan has an advantage over most defenses because you can convert your middle linebacker to a rusher, and then you can drop 2 into the that cover 2 shell and really do some damage. So you got that. You got Mili Vujicic comes in after Aiden Childs thinks up the joint. He goes 9 plays for a touchdown, and that was pretty much the game. And there's really not a whole lot to say about this one. This was a mediocre mud fight, in my opinion, and it was based on perception, hype, attitude, in-state rivalry. Mets versus the Yankees versus the Mets, Jets versus the Giants, Knicks versus Lakers. It's a rivalry. So you get a little more gas in the tank. You get a little more emotional. You make a little more mistakes. There was several times when several Michigan players had like these brain farts. Shemaj Morgan lets the pass hit him in the face mask instead of catching it. And then he also gets in the way of Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes could have had a 3rd touchdown on the night. That would have been a longer one. He gets in Justice Haynes' way, and then Justice Haynes kind of shows his irritation with the upperclassmen by slamming him to the ground. Like, yo, get up out of my way, man. I'm trying to get to this league, and you in my way, dude. You're not going where I'm going. And Samaj Morgan has showed last year and this year that mentally he may not be fit to go to places where he needs to go. There's been plenty of small, mighty mites, Desmond Howard, Wayne Corbett, Wes Welker, who have got in there and done their thing as mighty mites, right? As smaller diminutive players, but they got that heart and they got that concentration and they have that, they got that dog. And we thought that Samaj was that dude. And I don't know, man. I don't know. Between him and Freddie Moore, they might be the reason why that wide receiver room isn't taking the steps that they need to take because it may be some, malcontent going on with them, and they may be spreading throughout the locker room or that wide receiver room, and that's why that wide receiver room isn't really growing and developing the way it's supposed to. But hopefully, the coaches will remedy these sorts of things so that these sorts of things don't, keep hurting the program because we need to develop these things. We need to develop our passing game through our wide receivers. And good news though, we got a cupcake schedule coming up in Purdue and Northwestern and Maryland is always tricky right before Ohio State. Good tune-up for Ohio State though, so I don't really see a problem there. But I would say, we gotta, if the average with McCulley as a receiver is 9 yards per catch, you got to get that kid some more touches, man. You got to get him some fade routes. You got to get him some comebacks. You got to give him some, some dagger concepts, some boundary concepts where he can use his body to rebound against the receiver, Michael Irvin style, and you know, even be just a possession receiver and matriculate the ball up the field. It's looking like Andrew Marsh is going to be our run after the catch receiver. He's just more fleet footed than McCulley. So that means you're going to have to scheme McCulley open and then put the ball in away from him a little bit so he can use his body to and his catch radius to go up and get the football. And good thing is we got some cupcake schedule. We got a cupcake games coming up. Not cupcake. It's always Big Ten, so you always got to play hard. But they're not formidable teams, so you don't have to worry about you can really sharpen your sword on these teams. I just don't really care for um, the way that Michigan plays down to their competition. So that was the good. That was the bad and the ugly. The good was all the good was the win. The good was the getting out of there without anybody really being hurt. The good was not giving in to like spearing anybody or fighting anybody, and no one got suspended during a game where tensions could have went and really got crazy. Tensions could have got out of control, and you know things could have spilled off into some other stuff in a rivalry game where everybody remembers the tunnel. They taking off helmets and swinging it at people and busting fronts and all of that. So it could have got crazy and it didn't. And the reason why I think it didn't get crazy is I think Michigan State knew that they were outclassed. They weren't that type of team. So they were going to give it their best shot. I think the coaching staff was trying to save their jobs by winning this one, trying to pull this rabbit out of a hat and win this one. That's why you saw the defensive coordinator come down out of the press box and coach the team on the field because he wanted to impress upon them the urgency of playing, the all four quarters. So, you know, that was the good, the bad, the ugly of the game. The I told you so was what I told you about their offensive line. The offensive line is a sieve, man. They're Swiss cheese. And it showed itself as the game went along. Derek Moore came up with a sack. Jimmy Rolder had a sack. Uh, and even for the most part, the defensive backfield was pretty efficient versus that group. Michigan State just has a lot to work on. Their running game was not that great, although they had some spurts. You're always gonna have some spurts during the game. You're never gonna keep a group of scholarship players totally down to the point where they don't do anything in the course of the game. Um, Am I on? No, my mic isn't even on. Wow. Okay, it must be my computer then. Okay. So let's do that. Let's put that on. Because that's supposed to be on. That's weird as hell. That's not on. That's horrible and a half. So let's take a moment to do that. We don't have to cut things off to do that though. That's a plug and play. Let's make sure that's going. And that's the beauty of getting it real and getting it podcast style because you can see how the cake is made. And you know it's not Mockingbird News. You know it's not Mockingbird production. It's real. Gremlins and mistakes do happen, but we persevere and we move along. So I was talking about the good, the bad, the ugly. Oh, and then now we're talking about uh told you so versus crap-nalysis. Okay, so in the told you so point of it, um the offensive line was horrible. And like I told you in the I told you so in the game preview, these receivers put that ball on the ground. They dropped the Michigan State receivers dropped a lot of balls. They got a lot of balls batted and he dropped a lot of balls. And I mentioned that in my preview as well. You know, when I was watching on all 22, they dropped a lot of passes. So, and they didn't help out Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs can spin it. I think if he was on another team, like maybe a Rutgers or a oh boy, what's another good squad for him to be on? Because he can spin it, he can run, and he can spin the ball. Maybe even a Penn State. You know, I hear Penn State is taking quarterback applications, transfer, transfer portal, right? So, although I don't want to see him on Penn State, I'm just thinking of like ideal type of scenarios for his type of talent, and what you could do with it. I don't want to see him at Penn State. He can stay right where he is in the mediocre mud at Michigan State, trying to figure it out. But um, I think Michigan did a good job of averting disaster, not being drug into the mud and the minutia of it all, not being average, not being averaged out, not being drug into a fight or a scrum or some illegal hit or some illegal thing that suspended somebody or somebody getting hurt or some fight breaking out before or after or during the game. All of that was averted. And now you have the rest of your goals and your schedule, which is really light and are right ahead of you. And all your goals are still ahead of you. You lost two games that were poorly planned. And hopefully, this team and this coaching staff learns from the mistakes they made and you makes the proper adjustments and keeps it pushing. So that when they have to play the Ohio States, it's a one and in. It's a zero sum game, and we know how to play that game. We're going to need Bryce Underwood's legs. We're going to need Justice Haynes' legs. We're going to need Jordan Marshall's legs. We're going to need possession receptions from McCulley and Andrew Marsh. And the tight end room has to come alive. Um, you know, Zach Marshall, I believe, he has to come alive. He's been our best all around tight end for the most part. Hoffman was did really well in the spring game. I'd like to see them two get more opportunities instead of waiting for um, Hogan Hansen and Marlon Klein. Um, Especially when Marlon Klein wants to line up damn near on the football. Like that's football 101. Why would you not align yourself with the tackle? Like that makes no sense. He definitely should be demoted for that and held out at least a half, him and Samaj, before you put them back in and let them really feel what it's like to be on the other end of it. And let Zach and Hoffman get in there and get their spins, get their wins, man, and get their receptions up, get their confidence up. Because I'm telling you, it's a long season. We want to go to the playoffs. I believe Michigan is going to make the playoffs because I think Michigan is one of the top 4 best teams in the Big Ten, which means they're within the top 8 teams within the Big Two, SEC and Big Ten. Before it's all over, I think Michigan will be in the top 10 with an opportunity to go to the playoffs with a zero-sum game to play at when Ohio State comes to play Michigan. And I think Michigan is going to beat them because Ohio State's schedule also is they're not going to play anybody formidable up until Michigan. And Michigan is just going to keep sharpening their sword, keep sharpening their sword, keep iron sharpens iron. They're going to keep grinding teams into oblivion. And they're going to know that things that work. They're going to know the things that don't work. And I think they're going to come and put belt to ass. They just got to get through these last couple of games unscathed, stay relatively healthy, and they're going to do their thizzle. So that's it for me today on the recap. Stay tuned for Friday when we go over the pregame for the next game, which is Purdue. And we'll tell you, we haven't played them in a while, and they love to recruit those kind of quick twitch receivers and do all those kind of like, kind of gadget plays, those kind of screens and dink and dunk and gadget plays to open up the downfield pass and open up the running game because they really usually don't have a line that can hold up. And that's probably going to play out to be the case. It's probably not going to be very many teams in the Big Ten that are going to have an offensive line that can hold up against Michigan D line and their front seven. So, we'll see how that goes. But tune in for that. We're going to get into that. And as usual, I don't give you crap analysis. We just get after this real hardcore football information. Tune into the Big House Breakdown. We'll have a recruit breakdown on Friday as well. Just like we did last Friday, we'll have a recruiting breakdown because it's flip season, baby. Flip season. We're gonna go out there and get some of the best people out there with the I don't knows in their recruiting experience and bring them on to the maize and blue. So for the whole staff at the Big House Breakdown, my name is Vic. Fans, y'all come in, y'all comment. Y'all tell us what you thought of the episode. Tell us what you thought of I Told You So and the crap analysis. And, until next time, peace and go blue.